Mandel, and I'm here. Welcome, fellow storm riders. You are officially a rider on the Hypnotic Storm. Welcome to session number 52 of Brain Software with Mike Mandel, and I'm Chris Thompson. He enjoys the calmness of Canadian cottage country, the rain of Great Britain, and the cooking of Thailand. He is the fervent hypnotic garbage debunker, the man whose skills surpass even his own insane sense of humor. Please welcome to the microphone, Mike Mandel!
Yes, Christopher, I'm here again. We've done a live webinar this morning, and we are now doing podcast 52, and how quickly they have all passed as we all move towards our own imminent deaths at relatively high speed. Well, no, not at all. We're all moving at the rate of 1 second per second, as we have been since the beginning. Right. So what do we got today?
All right. Well, we have a few things on tap for today, but
glad to hear it.
The first thing that we wanted to talk about is something we have discussed adding to a podcast. We thought it would be fun, is the idea of offering positive suggestions to someone in a hypnopompic state.
Oh, yes,
now,
yes.
Before we go there, I think we do need to explain what is a hypnopompic state, how can someone make suggestions.
You start to sound like Arnold. How can...
we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, you sounded like, how can someone make suggestions?
How can you make a suggestion, you crazy person?
You sound like that. Hypnopompic states and hypnagogic states are really, really interesting states. Hypnagogic state has the word go in it.
Hypnagogic. Hypnagogic
is the state you are in just before you go to sleep. Hence the word go in it, although that's not really the connection. When you fall asleep, notice that your senses shut off in a particular sequence. Obviously, the visual sense shuts off first.
Because you got your eyes closed.
Your eyes shut. And the last sense to disappear is the hearing sense.
Right.
Auditory. We lying there, and things in the background can start to intrude into your sleep and your dreams as they're beginning. Have you had that happen?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Many, many, many times.
So hypnagogic is related to a trance state. It isn't a trance state. And now we know with human Givens theory, there may be a much stronger correlation between hypnosis and actual sleep than was previously thought. Now, the other aspect is the hypnopompic state, and the hypnopompic state is the state you are in just prior to being fully awake. So I'm sure we've all had this this particular thing where you're lying in bed and you've started to wake up. You're aware you're waking up, but you haven't even opened your eyes yet.
Well, I mean, it starts for me at least as, only later do I realize I was waking up. At the time, it's just this weird dreamlike state, and you haven't even realized that you're actually waking up yet.
Right, and then I reach a state of full awareness, but I sometimes still haven't opened my eyes. Mm-hmm. And the question is, can we use these for positive hypnotic suggestions? And the answer is an abiding yes, a powerful yes.
Yes.
In fact, positive affirmations spoken in the first person, I this, I that, whatever, while falling asleep can be extremely powerful. Likewise, if you awaken and realize you're not fully awake yet, but you're in that dreamy mid-zone, if you're able to get your head together enough to start giving yourself some positive suggestions, that may be very effective too. Which one do you think would be the easiest one to do?
Sorry, what are the two choices here again?
Well, when you're falling asleep or when you're awakening,
between the hypnagogic or the hypnopompic. I think it would be the hypnopompic state.
Reason?
Because you are emerging, I hate that word, but you're coming out of sleep. So you're becoming more alert as time goes on, as opposed to less alert.
Okay, so you think hypnopompic state would be your choice for when to apply?
That's just my guess.
Just watch me lean back, my hands behind
my head.
All right,
and you're wrong.
You're wrong. Actually, the hypnagogic state is the easiest because it's much easier to begin doing the suggestions as you transition into sleep than it is to be coming out of sleep and go, what was I supposed to be doing?
Okay.
You know what I mean? You've got the conscious mind still present.
I'm going to experiment with both of these, Mike. I'll let you know what
I would definitely do that. So what else we got in the menu here?
Well, you've
written the word food on the screen.
No, we don't want to get there yet. We haven't really investigated this whole topic thoroughly yet. So can you use the hypnopompic state as a way to offer positive suggestions to a person who's sleeping beside you in bed?
No, because you don't know that they're in a hypnopompic
That's
state.
What I was just wondering. How would you calibrate?
Yeah, how would you know? You can't tap them and say, are you awake?
Okay.
No answer. Are you asleep? No answer. We don't know. Or are you just in that in-between state? Guy nods. Okay, I'm going to give you some suggestions. No.
Okay, so when we talked about this, and we didn't flesh it out at all before this recording, just so the rest of you are all aware, what you mean here is self-suggestion or auto-suggestion.
Right.
Okay,
right.
so the idea that you can give yourself positive suggestions. So you're not saying to do it in a hypnopompic state. You're saying do it in a hypnagogic state.
I'm saying it's more likely to work.
Or experiment and find out. Let us know.
Absolutely.
Email us.
Or do it while you're fast asleep.
There you go. Okay, so play around with it. It's just something to try out. Let's talk about this next one, which is about food aversion. And this is a horrendous example, Mike. I don't think I've explained to you what's going on here. But so I wanted to save this for this podcast because I just think it's going to be one of these classic things where absolutely stupidity is involved.
Absolutely.
Ding, absolutely.
Police.
Comma. Stupidity is. That's why I paused, Mike.
Right,
There's no use for language police in there.
All right.
So total stupidity here. We have a situation where a hypnotist had seen a client, and this client was a woman who...
Hypnotist who shall not be named.
Yeah, I don't know who it was. It was just a story that I had read about.
Somewhere that we won't name.
Right. I'm not gonna explain where I got this from, but it's just horrendous stuff. So, hypnotist who believes he is doing the best work possible, and we're going to clear that up. So this woman has an issue with eating too much pizza. And I'm assuming that she's probably gone in. I mean, why would someone want to eat less pizza? There's only two possible reasons. A, they think it's affecting their health.
Or they've had enough.
Or B, it's affecting their weight.
Or they've had enough pizza.
Yeah, either. I mean, if they don't want any more pizza, they're just going to stop eating it. But usually it's, well, I'm overweight. I need to drop some weight, and my problem is pizza. Therefore, I need you, Mr. Hypnotist, to help me stop eating pizza. So here is Hypnotist's solution.
So this was an actual situation.
I assume, this was an actual situation. I'm just guessing as to what would have driven someone to want to eat less pizza. And again, I'm just saying, usually it's weight management or health, something like that. It's not just, well, I've decided I want to not like pizza anymore.
Right.
So let's assume this woman wanted to lose weight, and she goes to the hypnotist and says, okay, you need to help me. And she's self-diagnosed, right? Well, I need to eat less pizza.
I'm a pizza-holic.
So hypnotist decides, okay, I'll have you not just hate pizza, Mike, but I'm going to have you feel sick at the smell of pizza. So now...
Why would he make her hate it at all? I mean, that would be bad enough to make her feel sick.
I mean, hating it is one thing that's well beyond what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
But not only that, let's now have her feel violently ill at the smell of pizza. So here is the problem. Now, she's got a husband and a son who want to order pizza like Friday night before the hockey game or whatever it is, and she needs to run out of the room before it gets delivered so she doesn't smell it and have to go throw up in the bathroom.
Oh, that's terrible.
So let's talk about all the things that are wrong with this.
Let's talk about all of this.
And how you would deal with this type of thing differently. So a woman comes to you and say, I need you.
Or a man.
Anybody comes to you and says, look, I eat too much pizza. I need you to make me hate pizza. You're not going to actually do that. You're not going to make them feel sick of it. Let's talk about why that's bad and what you do instead.
Okay. Well, first of all, remember, all post-hypnotic work, all post-hypnotic suggestions are essentially anchors. You are setting a stimulus to a response, but a post-hypnotic suggestion isn't only set once and expected to fire because it's set at peak state like a typical anchor. But it's embedded very strongly when the person is in a deep trance, which is what gives it its real power. So these kind of things can happen all the time. Even an anchor can be very powerful in this area, let alone a post-hypnotic suggestion. So let's just see how powerful an anchor alone can be. We came to Canada 1957. My mother, my sister, and I, my father had gone ahead of us. And we followed by ship the HMS Corinthia, which was... White Star Lines was the original name of the company, became Cunard, but White Star gave us a wonderful thing called the sinking of the Titanic. Mm-hmm. Same company, different name, same people. And when we came across the North Atlantic, it was in the fall, I think late October, early November. My father had gone ahead of us. So 2 kids, I'm 4, my sister's 11, and my mom, in the North Atlantic, which are some of the roughest seas in the world, especially in the fall. So we're crossing. It takes a full week. Everybody on the ship is seasick, except for, I think, the captain and the ship's doctor. Everybody else is violently ill. We had ginger ale for the first time in our lives, having only ginger beer up to that point. But you had to go down the gangway the halls, holding onto a rope so you wouldn't fall over. You still have to eat, even though you're sick, because one would be so ridiculously ill. My sister walked into the dining hall while she was feeling horrifically ill, and guess what they had? Fresh rolls, bread rolls, and corn on the cob were the two smells that came wafting out.
Oh, no.
That became anchored with her for maybe 20 frickin' years. She could not eat either one, especially corn. The smell of it would immediately fire the state of being extremely nauseous and wanting to vomit. Now, that was only an anchor. Remember, it's just a peak state attached to a stimulus that is specific, repeatable, and noticeably unique. So, with something just like an anchor happening naturally, without a hypnotic trance, she was put off corn on the cob for 20-odd years until it eventually burned out. If one was doing this with a deep hypnotic state and causing this sort of aversion, which, of course, aversion therapy is essentially stupid in my view, the effect would be so profound, you could really mess the person up. So we're hearing that this poor person, this woman, has to go running out of the house when she smells pizza. What a nightmare that is.
Yep. She has to avoid the smell of it altogether. So the way I recall it is if the pizza man was about to show up and deliver the pizza, and she knew, she had to get the heck out of there before it showed up.
Get out of Dodge. It's crazy because people say, well, how can it be that bad? Listen, I worked with clients who were so sensitive to nuts with a nut allergy, which of course is just a phobia of the immune system. It's responding inappropriately. One woman in particular could not touch a photograph of peanuts and nuts in a magazine.
Oh, you told me about this.
She would start to go into anaphylactic shock. Had to carry an EpiPen with her.
I'm not sure if you mentioned this on a podcast
or not,
but if you did, it was so long ago, it's worth repeating. So, okay, that's
She carried
really
an EpiPen, so she'd give herself a shot of adrenaline so her throat wouldn't swell up, she wouldn't die.
Okay.
And just looking at a picture of nuts her allergy was so severe that touching a picture of nuts would cause an allergic response. So even though there is no allergen present. So, guys, it's not your imagination. People used to think, oh, hypnosis, it's all in your mind. It's just your imagination. No, it's about causing profound responses in your physiology and your neurology as a result of these things, whether it is being made averse to pizza or someone using these techniques to fight off a cancer by imagining, as one teacher I met, he'd been given a bad diagnosis, Doberman pinschers that were ripping a cancer to shreds in his body to stimulate his immune system to respond. So these things will have an effect. Now, the question is it ecological, though? Is it ecological to tell somebody every time you see, smell, whatever pizza, you'll feel like you're going to throw up, you'll feel seriously ill? I think that's ludicrous. And it shows that the typically poor level of hypnosis that is out there and the kind of thing that people routinely practice without, even thinking this through, just making these cavalier shifts in people.
It almost seems to me like the person who is installing a food aversion, such as this pizza incident we're talking about, must believe that the alternative of having her simply not like pizza would not work because her conscious mind would somehow overpower it and say, well, I don't like it, but I'm going to eat it anyway. So we need a stronger ammunition against this. You need to hate it so much that just the smell of it will make you sick. And therefore, you will never be able to smell it without feeling sick, and you'll never eat it again. You don't need strong medicine. I mean,
who's really good at this, Chris, is Didi Vergados, the weight management guru. And she can make people hate stuff. She can make you hate chocolate. She can make you hate donuts or whatever it is.
She talked about this on the podcast, yeah.
But she's not going to make you sick at the sight of it or thought of it. It's the very fact is she's going to shift the submodalities, find something you find disgusting,
right,
and anchor that to it. So if you don't like eating broccoli, just you don't like the flavor of it, whatever. Your favorite food happens to be, strawberry donuts. She will get the submodalities of the strawberry donuts. And how close is the image? Is it black and white? Is it color? All these things. And then shift it and make it the submodalities of the broccoli.
Oh, I'm immediately thinking, broccoli that's been a little bit overcooked, so it's mushy, just like that warm out of the oven strawberry donut. Oh yeah, you can get those submodalities. There you go.
And you can add, of course, content reframes, and not just changing the submodality. So that the donut is the person bites into it and sees it's crawling with worms or something, which is horrible.
Visual, horrible.
Remember, one of our wonderful architecture of hypnosis students, Joni, came up with her husband all the way from Oregon.
Right.
Their first morning in Toronto, which is so sad. We got great restaurants here, great multicultural, great everything.
Did you say architecture of hypnosis? I think you meant mindscaping.
Oh, they came up for mindscaping?
Yes. Yeah.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay. I can't sort them out in my mind at my age. I'll do some mindscaping on myself.
Was this last June? Yeah.
This is a few months ago. And to me, I can't remember what I ate yesterday. So I can remember what they ate, though. It was mindscaping, a couple of days, and they went out to the restaurant, and they couldn't find... went to find a restaurant. They're walking to the event, and they went to a little mom-and-pop grocery store and bought some fast food things that sit wrapped in a package forever. And the thing was crawling with worms. Ugh. And I thought, oh man.
Horrible.
Now, do you think she would automatically get an aversion to that food in the future?
Well, and not only that food. So certainly to that, I would say certainly to that store. So right. Just the store, the idea.
It doesn't generalize to Toronto.
Right. So that store, you're probably going to be thinking to yourself, no, they serve the maggots or whatever it is,
but,
right?
There was
the food too.
There was a Swiss milk chocolate when I was in high school. I don't know if they even make it anymore. And I won't say the brand, but... clearly, it's not a big one if you don't know if they make it anymore. And I'm not a big chocolate guy, but somebody in our class, they found moth eggs and things in it.
Oh, no.
And it so grossed them out. I never ate that chocolate again. And
just
I never even had it.
This story.
I never even had this stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. It just goes to show you
how
if you...
Aversion works, but the key is to do it in an ecological manner. So shift the submodalities so they no longer crave that food. But you don't want to make it so it's going to make them physically ill if they're in the presence of it.
All right, so let's back up a little bit, just for people who are working with clients, or, just for general interest. This is a great topic. Somebody comes into your office and says, Mike, I'm really fat. I need to lose some weight, and I eat too much pizza. That's my problem. I want you to make me hate pizza. Is that enough, or do you want to back up a bit and do
absolutely going to back up. I'm going to find out what's driving their behavior. What is pizza giving them that they need in their life? What is the state change they're getting from it? How can they get it otherwise?
Comfort. I get a lot of comfort. I eat pizza. So I just feel really comfortable.
We got to find other ways of getting it. And you have to find the drivers. You got to find the reason behind the behavior. And that's always secondary gain, right?
Yeah.
Now, you don't always have to work with secondary gain to fix something. The entire energetic tapping regimens from EFT, Be Set Free Fast, Tapas acupressure technique, etc., 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 the basic theory behind that, according to Willem Lammers, when I studied with him, a Swiss psychologist, is that all of these things are driven by right brain anxiety, like a zzz in the right brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing whatever to do with secondary gain. They have a totally different model, and both models work. So I'm not making any of these statements as absolute truth. I'm just saying find something that works and use that.
Okay. Makes sense. So I think we've hammered that point home now.
I think we have.
Let's move on to the next topic on our list here, which is... Oh, I wrote down this one. Okay, so again, for those of you listening, you probably heard me say before, I'm a slow reader. I like listening to audiobooks. So lately I've been listening to an audiobook by Chris Guillebeau called The $100 Startup. Really, really fascinating book for a guy.
Oh, yeah. Talk about this. This is a very interesting story.
Great. Great. I love the book because it's all about entrepreneurialism, so starting businesses and stuff. And of course, since we're entrepreneurs, that really fits for us. And a lot of our listeners are into that stuff too. And he told a story, and it related to the idea that people need to feel like they're getting value for their money. So the story he told was, I think he was at a Starbucks. He had been driving a rental car to a gig that he had to do. And somehow he got his coffee and he just got a bit of a mental mess and was taking some stuff out of his trunk. And somehow when he closed his trunk, he left his keys in there. So he locked his keys in the trunk of a rental car, like on his way to a gig. So he pulls out his phone and uses the Wi-Fi connection and whatever, and he finds the locksmith, and he gets the guy on the phone, and the guy agrees to rush out immediately. So 15 minutes later, locksmith shows up in the parking lot of the Starbucks. I think I got most of the details right here.
Yeah.
And he literally takes 30 seconds to unlock the guy's...
Wait, Slim Jim it down the window or something?
He didn't say, but in the book, he just explained that it took like 30 seconds before he, opened the door, and then he was able to pop the trunk from there, kind of thing. And so Chris, in relaying this story in the book, was saying, I thought he was going to bill me $25 or something like that. And so when he said that'll be $200, he thought, well, my God, $200, it's absurd. It took him 30 seconds, forgetting about the fact that he had to get the guy out there on a moment's notice. And he admitted in the book, if it had just taken the guy, let's say 10 minutes of effort, which would be longer and put him more at risk of being late to his gig.
Yeah, he would have been happy to pay.
He would have been happier.
Yeah.
Or if it had taken the guy, let's say, 45 minutes to arrive, like a bigger ordeal in getting there,
right, it's cost him something,
then it would have felt more justified.
Or if it was in horrendous downpour or something. Right.
And of course, after the fact, he realized, well, wait a second. I mean, in me paying the same amount of money, that $200 for an instant solution, I'm actually getting better value. I'm less likely to be late for my gig.
It's the opposite, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was listening to this, Mike, of course, I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is so well fitting with a story that Andre, one of our students from Mindscaping also last June, and we were talking about over coffee one morning, and we were making, I can't remember, actually, you have a story about this, about ships and...
Yes, well, the classic metaphors in a lot of NLP books, and the old days of steamships where they used coal to heat up a huge boiler that would run a steam engine. They'd cross the ocean at a pretty good clip, and one of them began to rattle and clank way too loud for a steam engine, and it was obviously not a healthy sound, and the company found the manufacturer of the steam engine, and they sent a technician out, and he listened to how it was running, and he opened a traveling toolbox and took out a hammer, and he went up to the steam engine as it was running and tapped in one particular spot, hit it with the hammer, and the noise completely disappeared and it started running flawlessly again. And of course, everybody was thrilled until they got the bill. And it was something like $900, or let's say 900 pounds.
A lot of money back then.
Scotland, 900 pounds for fixing this. And they were so outraged, they said, send itemized bill. And he wrote back and said, or the company that serviced it said, cost for tapping with hammer, £1. Cost for knowing, or charge for knowing where to tap, £899. And that's it. You're paying for the person's expertise as much as anything, too.
And so, even though we know this to be the case, that people should be paying for expertise, their emotional mind kicks in and they go, well, it's not worth it. So how many times on this podcast have you talked about, or in the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, have you talked about, Mike, the idea that a therapeutic intervention might take, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Yeah. But how long of a session do you book? I booked
90-minute sessions when I was doing this all the time, because the fastest I ever got rid of a phobia or fixed a bad problem. There's a guy in Oshawa, not too far from where we are now, and he worked for General Motors, and he kept getting these anxiety attacks and thinking he was having a heart attack. And chest pains radiating down the left arm into his jaw. This guy's about 26 years old, in the peak of health. They would call the paramedics. He'd actually be taken out in an ambulance.
Jeez.
And he was saying to his wife, goodbye, I love you, thinking he's dying, gets to the hospital, and they check him out. There's nothing wrong. It was just purely
anxiety.
It's psychogenic, created in his mind. So I said to him, where do you see these heart attacks when you think of it? And he said, right here. And he showed me in front of himself. I said, you ever have one of those little trains when you were a kid that went around the base of the Christmas tree, which is a big thing over here for a certain time in history? He went, yes. He said, we had a round track and a little toy train would go round and round. I said, put that anxiety on a train track right around your eye level, with the track going right around your head. And I want you to just tap it, and so the anxiety and the heart attack thing swings around and gets behind you and stays there.
Nice.
That was the fix. The whole thing took under 3 minutes, and his entire problem disappeared, and I checked back with him years later. Now, I billed him for my expertise.
Not for 3 minutes of time.
Not for 3 minutes of time. And I mean, think about it, Chris. We should really be thinking of paying more if the person can do it quickly.
Absolutely.
Suppose you have to undergo, testicular amputation, Chris, on television. Would you rather pay $100 and have it take 3 hours? Or would you rather pay $1,000 and have it take 5 seconds?
Or a nanosecond.
Yeah.
Well, I love the metaphor there, because, I mean, that's just like, for any guy, you're like, no, that's painful.
That's right. You want it quick.
But
you don't want it done with a hacksaw or a butter knife.
Well,
you want it done with a frickin' axe.
Do you pay more?
Or at least a
Here we are near Toronto. Would you take a bus or a plane if you wanted to get to, say, Montreal faster?
I'd take a plane.
Actually, yeah, you take a plane. Which one's going to cost you more?
Probably the plane.
The plane, of course.
Unless it's a really
Which makes sense,
bus.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, and if you could do the click your heels 3 times and say,
there's no place like home.
There's no place like Montreal. What would you pay more for? Nobody in their right mind is going to say, well, if I want to be there fast, of course, I'm not willing to pay for that speed, so I'll pay more for the bus. I'll pay more to sit beside a bunch of stinking strangers, who haven't bathed themselves
ever
or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pay a premium for that and the 6-hour journey.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, I don't think so, right?
So that's why, like you said, I booked the 90-minute appointments. And that's the wonderful thing. If you are a therapist, psychotherapist, social worker, whatever, if you have hypnotic skills, then if you fix something, and you do fix it in 10 or 15 minutes, presuming you've done an interview first and you've gathered sufficient information without it becoming a talk therapy, i.e. anti-therapy session, then you might have only used half an hour. You still got, if you set them free now, they might think, well, they wasted their money. They booked a whole session with you. So I say 60 to 90 minutes. I would leave it open somewhere in between there. So if they're really happy and thrilled, I can turn them loose at 60 minutes with no problem.
Yeah.
But the advantage is, then you can throw them in a trance if necessary and kill some time with hypnosis and give them all these ego-strengthening, wonderful suggestions.
Exactly.
So they leave feeling better.
Let's talk about this, though, that we don't want to turn let's say you have a 10-minute fix for whatever it is. So let's say instead of this let's come back to the pizza thing, right? So instead of this food aversion, we're going to make you feel sick at the sight of pizza. We're now going to talk about things that support whatever change you're going to make to eat healthier foods instead of pizza. So now you're safely happy to avoid pizza.
Right.
But you're not going to get, vomiting
not going to get
sick out of it.
Yeah.
And now you're going to focus on related issues for the rest of the session. You're not going to say, and let's also work on your relationship or anything that's totally out in left field, right? So
yes, right.
What else can you do to support your health or other related
something that's related
things?
to it, and the unconscious will resonate with that because there is some sort of a connection in their mind. So,
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good.
So, that's why when people are going through the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy and learning all of the lessons that there are, you can just get so much in your toolbox that you can help people, and you can easily fill that 60 or 90 minutes.
Which means it'd be a good time to do a quick commercial here. We do have the November training is sold out.
Yes.
The Architecture of Hypnosis, absolutely full, 5 months in advance.
Now, there is a waiting list, so get on it, and in the odd event
and this isn't some sort of sales ploy. We're saying there's a waiting list, and guess what? Everybody who calls us gets in. I mean, no. It is sold out. We only do 2 hypnosis trainings a year. The next one will be in May. And if you want to come out and study with us in May, then you might want to start planning in advance to make sure you don't miss us.
Yeah, other than these podcasts, we basically just don't advertise the classes.
No, we don't advertise. Lamborghini does not advertise.
That's right. All right, so...
Okay, that's why they're not selling many cars.
Now, we don't have a ton of time left on this podcast.
I want to go to the metaphor.
Okay,
here.
let's go to the metaphor, and we'll skip the topic that we had in queue here
we'll put it in the next one.
The next one. But go for it, because this fits really well.
It's a good metaphor, Chris. About 2 months ago, I was at a concert through something called Toronto Harvest or something. I can't remember the name. It had Harvest in the title. Acoustic Harvest. And this is a little group. They bring in different acoustic players, singers, songwriters, violin players, and so on. And they play some amazing stuff. They typically rent a church auditorium with good sound, and they sell these tickets. And you get to hear some pretty cool players and singers and that you wouldn't typically get to hear. And there was a group from Newfoundland there. And which is, for those of you outside of Canada, it's the easternmost part of Canada. It's the most recent province to make it into Confederation. And Newfies are just fabulous people. They're warm-hearted. They're easy to get along with. They're funny as hell. And just great people. Well, this group did their concert, and they were traveling, 2 girls and 1 guy, in a van. And so they hung around afterwards. They signed some CDs, and it was time to leave. And he went out to warm up the van or put some stuff in it or whatever. He got there first. He came back in, and lo and behold, he'd locked the keys in the van.
Oh, no.
And they did not have, auto club membership like CAA, AA, whatever it is. And so he determines he's going to try to get into the van. So nobody has a Slim Jim or anything to try to open it. Instead, he gets a coat hanger from back in the church. And we open this coat hanger up, make a little hook, and he goes out and he starts working down the side of the van. On and on and on. And he's like, half an hour. We look out the door. He's still trying to get the thing open. We'll not give up on this. And then after about another 15 minutes, one of the girls goes out to check, and he's gone around to the other side. Oh, no, he's still working on it like this. And she walks around to her side of the van, and the door is unlocked. And she says, Jim, she said, the door is open over here. And he said, I already got that one. I'm working on this one.
No, that's awesome. I love it. So, thank you, everybody, for tuning in again. Like it's a radio tuning in, like old world references. And speaking of metaphors, right?
Yeah.
for podcast number 52 of Brain Software.
Head over to our website.
Mike Mandel, and I'm Chris Thompson. Yeah, head on to the website, MikeMandelHypnosis.com. You can add yourself to our email list, which will also get you a free copy of Mike's brilliant Brain Software ebook. It is full of amazing stuff. We keep getting emails from people who've read it and loved it, and it's just awesome, awesome stuff. And we would love it if you could head on over to iTunes and leave a rating and a review for this podcast so we can expose it more and more to the rest of the world. That's right.
That's right. Thanks, Sam. Good night.
Good night.
Hi, my name's Dee Dee Vergatos. I'm a hypnotherapist here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I'd just like to personally say thank you to Mike Mandel. I've attended many of his courses. I've attended hypnosis courses, handwriting courses. I've attended courses where he talks about mindscaping. And what I can say that sets Mike apart from other hypnotherapy teachers is that not only does he give you a lot of knowledge about hypnosis itself, but he includes the history and the scientific validation behind the hypnotic process. So Mike offers one of the most comprehensive courses when it comes to hypnosis or other things. So I highly, highly, highly recommend him. Once again, thank you, Mike.
I've been away from you a long time. I never thought I'd miss you so. Somehow I feel this is real. Near you I long to be. The birds are singing in the sunlight. The birds are singing in the night. California, here I come. Mommy, right back where I...